What's up, travelers? Welcome to the Stellar Highway. My name is Motormind, and I'll be your guide. Today I wanted to talk about two comic books I picked up. It was a light week for me, so not a lot of books coming out. Maybe it's because of the 4th of July, I don't know. But light week, two books. I wanted to talk about them. I like both books quite a bit. The first of which is Infinity Countdown Darkhawk number 3. This will be full spoilers, so if you haven't listened to my reviews of issues 1 and 2, do go back and watch the comic book reviews for the previous months, and I kind of talk about the story and roll through it, and that'll catch you up to this point. So, full spoilers, here we go. At the end of issue 2, Chris was left for dead. Geyer from the Fraternity of Raptors had torn the amulet out of Chris's chest and left him for dead. He gave that amulet to Richard Rider, or Nova's younger brother, and he became Dark Starhawk. And this is Dark Starhawk on the cover here. This is a really cool design. I love the way this guy looks. I mean, it wouldn't bother me if Darkhawk took on some of these like aesthetics here. You know, I like the fur cape. This is sort of a royal type look. This looks very kingly. This is cool. I do like the way this guy looks. He's not in the book a lot, but man, it makes a great cover. So at the beginning, we're treated to this little bit here where the Badoon and the Kree are fighting over an Infinity Stone, and the Kree are on the ropes. You know, their ship can only take one more hit, etc., etc. And that's when the Fraternity of Raptors shows up, and they use the Dark Starhawk powers to completely eliminate the Badoon. And then, you know, he says, "You have a cool ship." And he takes it. So basically the Raptors kind of commandeer the ship, and they cut back to Chris at that point, who's kind of bleeding out, and he's making some jokes, you know, trying to keep his wits about him and trying to, you know, stay conscious. When he kind of sees this sort of like specter, he sees this sort of like hawk-like visage, and what it is the last sliver of Razor. So, if you'll remember back in issue 51, Razor gave up his cybernetic body because he had been sharing it with Chris, and he was ultimately influenced by Chris's heroics and Chris's, good deeds. And Razor basically became good, gave up his body to Chris so Chris could save the day. And it turns out there's just a little sliver of like cybernetic consciousness, sort of an AI type deal. There's just a sliver of it left, and he's like, "Chris, you know, don't give up. You know, I gave you the body, but I see now why we couldn't win. You know, I see why you couldn't win against the Raptors. I gave you the body, but I didn't give you the mind." And so basically he gives Chris the entire like celestial history of the Darkhawks, of the Raptors, basically. And you see the very some of the cosmic beings that existed at the time. One of them was the gardener, and he planted the seed that would later like bear the crystals that become the Raptors. And so you see like the tree has blossomed. The Shi'ar and the Skrulls are fighting over the tree, and of course we know that the crystals are kind of tied to the Shi'ar, and the Shi'ar win the fight. They become the first Raptors, and kind of like in a weird twist are inspired by the Skrulls and use sort of the power to shapeshift and create these blades and just decimate the Skrulls. And, you know, Chris is like, "Wow, seeing this is, you know, the Skrulls are bad news. Everybody hates the Skrulls. It's like the first thing you learn when you go to space is like, watch out for the Skrulls." But he's like, "I feel bad for them because the Shi'ar just used the powers of, you know, the Raptors to just decimate and like obliterate these Skrulls." And he actually kind of feels some pity for him. He's like, I should be scared of what I could do. This is in me. This destructive power is in me. But he's like, I'm not as scared as I should be. So it's pretty awesome. He decides, you know, to kind of stand up and fight again. He says, you know, because you're human. You're not Shi'ar. You were never meant to use the amulet. we've disconnected you from the data song, which is kind of like the last limitation that Darkhawk had placed on him. If you'll remember back in issue 1, he tried to reconfigure the armor to fight Death's Head, but it didn't work. And he's like, this is why, this is the last limiter on your power. I've taken it away now. Your potential is like limitless. You can do anything now, basically. So Chris just uses like this new found power to reconfigure himself to just kind of shed the dying Darkhawk body. So it just kind of like cascades off of him, and it's really cool. So I'm going to skip a few pages for copyright reasons. So Death's Head shows up. He makes a few jokes. I do like the Death's Head stuff. But basically, Chris catches up to the Kree warship that the Raptors have commandeered, and they're like, what's this? What's on the sensors? What's coming? And they're like, it's one of ours. It's a Raptor. And they're like, well, that's impossible. We're all here, and I left Pal for dead. And they're like, no, it's him, and it's huge. And so basically, Chris has become this like giant robot. It's like a giant robot Darkhawk. It's so cool. And I'll show you the final page here is sort of like the cover art, or just like some promo art for the next issue. And this doesn't match the art on the page. I don't know if this is still Chris here, but this thing is awesome. This is like the best parts of a Pacific Rim Jaeger, and like the best parts of Darkhawk just kind of combined. This is awesome. I mean, even the art on page, which we only get to see, is just this sort of brief one picture, just a very slim profile of like giant robot Darkhawk. And I mean, even if they don't go with the spectacular cover art that's kind of teased for the next issue, I think he looks awesome. He looks amazing. My only complaint would be that we've yet again tooled with Darkhawk's origin and powers and etc. and his lore. But I feel like this is it. I feel like they finally put a period at the end of that origin story, and we can just have some giant robots and have some Darkhawk fights and just have fun with this. And I'm totally on board with that. I love giant robots, always have. If you watch any of my other videos, I'm pretty big giant robot enthusiast, so I never imagined we would have giant robot Darkhawk, and this makes me very happy. Super looking forward to the next issue. We have 2 more of these, so it's we've got issue 4 and issue 5 coming. So let's see how this plays out. Wanted to talk about Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 306. If you haven't watched the previous comic book reviews that I've thrown up on this channel, I've been reviewing this book for a couple of months now, and this is a very deep, complicated storyline. There's a lot of backstory and history to that. I'm not going to go into all that now, but there will be full spoilers, so if you're interested in this, do catch up and then return to this video. For those of you that have been with me on this, here we go, full spoilers. This is an incredible book. I really like everything about this book, except the cover. I think this is a lazy cover. This is like, compare. I only picked up 2 books this week, but let's compare covers. Here you've got Spider-Man. He's lying down. There's sort of like a life sign, like a heart monitor. It's turning into some weird green goo or something like that. So this cover is like Spidey taking a nap. And then you've got Darkhawk. This incredible Darkhawk cover that's like really cool, really regal, really imposing, really dynamic, just incredible colors and just like an awesome character design. So you've got that, or Spidey taking a nap. This, or Spidey taking a nap. Which cover do you like best? Well, fortunately, this book is so much more than its cover. This is a great Spider-Man story. Initially, I thought this was a little too familiar to an issue or 2 prior, because we do have Spidey hooking up with a resistance movement to fight a bigger bad, etc., etc. But I mean, I quickly forgot all about the similarities and got wrapped up in this. This Zdarsky he's great at Spider-Man. If you watch my reviews from last week, I praised, I think it's Jason Aaron, and how he wrote Cap. I would give that same praise to Zdarsky and maybe even more so, just amp that up. I mean, this guy gets Spider-Man. I mean, there's not a lot of jokey Spider-Man in this, but I mean, the heroic aspects of Peter's character are on full display here. The selflessness that he exhibits in this issue, and just the heroics. I mean, he gets Spider-Man. I mean, this is awesome. I've never read any other Chip Zdarsky books, but after reading this one and enjoying the previous 3 or 4, I mean, I really want to. I want to see what else this guy has done. But man, there's so we jump into the present, into the correct timeline where the Vadami are taking over the Earth. They're capturing all the AIs. They're gonna eliminate the humans that enslaved the AIs. And there's this great opening scene here where Spidey saves Herbie. He's like, Johnny would never forgive me if I let something happen to this little guy. And I love robots. I've said that in a million videos. So I even like Herbie. I know he's sort of not everybody loves Herbie, but I remember him on the cartoon, the Fantastic Four cartoon, when I was a kid. So I like Herbie. This was a cool thing. I like that he saved Herbie. And then we're treated to Daredevil here, and he just looks awesome. And the interior art is, I mean, just to be praised. I know it's Adam Kubert is back, but he's sort of partnered up with someone. I think it's Juan Figueri, I think. These guys should work together more, because the interior art in this is awesome. I mean, Daredevil looks incredible right here. This is like super good stuff. I don't know if this is a callback to some classic Daredevil pose or something, but Daredevil crouched down like this, like shushing us. That's awesome. That looks incredible. I don't know much about Daredevil. I've only seen the Netflix show, so I don't know my Daredevil, but this looks great. He looks awesome here, and he basically leads them to the Resistance. I am gonna skip a page or two here, but he leads them to the Resistance. There's a cool scene here where you see that the heroes have tried to isolate and sort of rescue the other robot themed heroes, the other AI heroes, and I see Vision back there, and I think maybe Machine Man, and of course Herbie is being placed back there for their protection from the Vadam. And what they've done to stall the Vadam is to create a bunch of AIs and just throw them on cell phones and stuff like that to spread the Vadam out and thin them out and keep them occupied until they can come up with a plan to defeat them. And of course Spidey's come back from the past, and he's got this capsule, and this capsule's supposed to be the secret to defeating the Vadam. And he's like, well, Black Panther analyzes it, says, well, this needs a host, basically. It needs a consciousness to attach to. And Spidey just, bang, he just instantly cracks open the pill and lets the Vadam tech envelop him, and it actually kills him. You can see on this page, Black Panther is checking his vitals and stuff. He's like, Spider-Man's dead. And then we're treated to sort of a little cliffhanger scene, and I'm gonna skip a page or two here just for copyright's sake, but we sort of skip away from that cliffhanger to a scene where the Tinkerer is being interrogated. They're like, help us beat the Vadam. We're going to beat him anyways. Anything you can give us will be helpful to you and might, keep you from spending life in prison, etc., etc. Well, guarding them is Riri Williams, Ironheart, and the Tinkerer basically hacks her armor and uses her to escape. And he jets off, presumably for the Vadam, and suddenly Spidey comes back to life, and there's this great stuff here about, Jonah's like, why did he do that, and, why did he sacrifice himself, and, Teresa's like, you should know by now, I mean, he's a hero. I mean, this is good stuff, just great stuff. Well, it turns out Peter wasn't dead. Basically the Vadam tech that merged with him caused him to like reboot, and it was like a hard reboot, I think is what he says. And Peter's like changed. I mean, from like every bit of his being has been changed. He's like, my mind's like a machine now. I can remember things that from my childhood that I have no memory of. He's like, he sees his mom smiling at him. He sees, he's sharing a burger with his dad. He sees Mary Jane. There's things that he, didn't remember that he can suddenly remember. It's like painful for him. He's like, I see my parents, I miss, miss them more than ever. And I remember every smile. And he's like, it's just too much. I'm getting overwhelmed. But Teresa like kind of helps ground him. She's like, use this. This can be your fuel, to fight back against the Vadam. You can do this. And so Peter's like, yeah, I can do this. And he's like, not only, is my mind changed, but my body's changed, like right down to my bones. He's like, I'm super powerful now. So it's like really cool. And then, he gives sort of like, he asks requests of Teresa, but the chat bubble's kind of like squiggled out. So we don't know what he says to her. But Jonah, kind of says, I know what I need to do now. And, he vanishes. So a little mysterious there. I don't know what Jameson's up to. But Peter, Teresa's like, I can fly you close to the warship, and then you can web your way up the rest of the way. And he's like, nah, I don't need it. And then we get this amazing page here where Peter's just like super jumping, just like propelling himself towards the Vadam warship, and then he's got these memories of like his, of his life, Aunt May, I believe that's Flash and Gwen, Uncle Ben giving him his first microscope, and then finally Teresa, and he's just like launching himself towards the warship, and then there's just this very simple panel here of him just like making contact with it. It's really cool. But this is awesome. It's so dramatic. It's so cool. This is so cool. I really, really appreciate everything he's, the writing here. It's so cool. This is very heroic stuff. I'm just like babbling about it. This is good stuff. I really liked this. Now, Peter arrives at the core. He's like, when he spoke to Teresa on the roof, he said, the temperature's in the core, I'm not going to be able to come back from this. I have a request for you. And, he's going to sacrifice himself. And here he is perched at the edge of the core, and then he's sort of surprised by somebody. But I don't want to spoil the surprise. I'll leave that for next month. Leave that for you guys to discover. But, man, this is great Spider-Man stuff. This Zdarsky Spider-Man is just... it's incredible. I really, really like it. The previous issues have been great, but this one is like a home run for me. This was awesome. I'm wondering if years from now, people might point back to this as like some great Peter Parker stuff, some great Spider-Man stuff. I certainly think so, but I'd like to know what you guys think. Go ahead and leave a comment below if you read this and enjoyed it as much as I do. It may not be perfect, but it's darn close. I really liked this. I liked this more than Spider-Man 800. This feels more genuine somehow, and less of like just a blockbuster movie event, but just like a close, hits you in the feels type story. So this comes with like the highest recommendation. So if you like Spidey, there's a lot of storyline to catch up to here, but you won't regret catching up to it, and you'll enjoy this, I think, as much as I did. But let me know what you thought in the comments below. Do subscribe and ring the bell. Give a thumbs up if you like this, etc., etc. And thanks for riding on the Stellar Highway. I will see you next time.